Thank you very much, colleagues, for joining yet again in this session on a research report that focuses on the upcoming elections in Sierra Leone. The report has been authored by one of us, Mr. Issa Bangura, whom we'll be introducing in a short while. And the research report is on Sierra Leone's 2023 elections, the COVID-19 pandemic, and the civic space. We will be exploring the intersection between the COVID-19 pandemic, which of course we are still experiencing a ripple effect of that global pandemic in our day-to-day lives today. Civic space, which continues to be an issue that we as civil society actors are grappling with within our respective countries, and it will be important to explore how that phenomenon, is going to affect or is going to affect, the upcoming elections that we will be having in a couple of days, less than 10 days from now. Colleagues, once again, you are welcome to this discussion session on the Sierra Leone's 2023 elections, the COVID-19 pandemic, and the civic space. This is actually a discussion that will focus on a research report that was authored by Mr. Issa Bangura. Mr. Issa Bangura is a Bachelor of Law student from the University of Sierra Leone and a first division with honors graduate student in mass communication from the aforementioned institution. He is a results-driven professional with more than 5 years of demonstrated experience in organizational and leadership skills, and he has a proven commitment to human and people's rights, especially with a focus on women and children. He has competencies in project development and management, evidence-based advocacy, problem solving, and of course, a keen researcher who is focused on dissecting some of the core issues affecting civil society's work in his country, Sierra Leone. It is important to mention that Mr. Issa equally has a publication that explored the impact of COVID-19 on civil society organizations in Sierra Leone, and that was actually authored. It was a research that was conducted between 2020 and 2021. Issa has strong skills in strategic advocacy, communication, research, data analysis, and he serves as the communications officer at Defense for Children International in Sierra Leone. Good morning, Mr. Issa. Good to have you here with us. Hello, Issa. You've kindly turned on your video and your mic. Your mic is on mute, please.
Yes, I just did that. Thank you so much, Jim. It's a privilege to be here with you guys, and it's been an exciting journey, and we're happy to be here. Great,
thank you very much. Discussing, this particular research report, we will be having Mr. Jimmy Sankiatu. Jimmy, are you there? He's been having some light challenges joining us, but we hope that he will join us in a short while. Jimmy, are you there, please?
Yes, I'm confirming that I'm here and I'm on video.
Great. Good to have you here with us.
Let me hasten to inform you that the internet here is not great. So any disruption, please understand that it's not just great. Thank you.
Okay, that is quite understandable. Thank you very much, Jimmy. So Joseph Jimmy Sankiatu is the current resident director of Sierra Leone and the Gambia for the International Republican Institute. Before that's IRI. Before joining IRI, he worked for Search for Common Ground as the country director for Sierra Leone and Liberia. He also served as program advisor for Lebanon and Nigeria country offices for Search for Common Ground. In 2018, he led the Standing Together for Democracy Consortium, comprising of democratic civil society organizations that support free, fair, and peaceful elections with funding from UKA. Jimmy holds a Master's of Science degree in Leadership and Governance and another in Diplomacy and International Relations from the Institute of Public Administration and Management and the Fora Bay College, respectively, of the University of Sierra Leone. And he equally holds a bachelor's degree in political science. We are quite delighted to have you here with us, Jimmy, and we hope that the internet will be quite stable to permit you share your thoughts. We know you are on the ground working hard to ensure that the upcoming elections are quite free, fair, and successful. And so getting your thoughts on this thought-provoking research report is really something that we are keen on having within this discussion. But ladies and gentlemen, just to let you know that we will be providing a few minutes for Mr. Issa Bangura to take us through what this research report is all about and some of the key findings that emanated from the research, and also some key recommendations, particularly with regards to the role civil society can play to ensure that we all put our hands on deck to make the upcoming elections a positively memorable one for Sierra Leone and for West Africa as a whole. Then we will be having some inputs from Mr. Jimmy, who will basically share his insights on what he thinks and what we as civil society organizations can take from this. Then we will have a few minutes to take some questions, some observations from you, our wonderful audience, and who are here with us today. And then we will have a short assessment, basically to gather feedback from you. That is actually the rundown for this particular discussion. I am Jim Chik from Njong. I work at the West Africa Civil Society Institute within the Knowledge Management and Communication Unit. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, once again, for being very faithful followers of the great work we are contributing to together with you. And thank you for joining this session. Mr. Issa, I am turning to you. By the way, before you even get on to providing us with the insights in this wonderful report, what motivated you to carry out this research?
First of all, thank you so much, Jim, for the opportunity. And I'm also very grateful to WACSI for providing the platform so I can share my knowledge and can impact society via research. The inspiration is basically the fact that Sierra Leone is moving towards the 2022 elections. There were so many issues that were happening before this time, before this June 24 elections, that because of the fact that every person has a role to play to contribute to transforming lives, but also to impact school knowledge. So I thought it fit that there was a reason for us to understand what is the context, what are the realities, what are the bottlenecks, and what are the progress Sierra Leone as a state has actually made to promoting civic space. Immediately, also very crucial because we are moving towards the 2022 elections just days before now, after now, like you rightly said. So there's a reason for us to understand the context, how civil society organizations actually strive in a challenging environment that has already existed as a result of COVID-19 pandemic. So the issue, mainly the inspiration, is actually to get policymakers to get what they need, knowledge and information, so that they can shape society and make it progressive for everyone to interact. It does not matter where you belong or who you represent. We are all Sierra Leonean, and everyone should be given a chance to speak up and be heard on issues of national cohesion, peace, and security. That's the inspiration.
Hello, Jim. Please, you're muted.
Your mic is mute.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes. Thank you very much, Issa, for that wonderful background. That it's quite inspirational. The passion, the commitment, to dive deep into some of these issues that affect our society and are important for our society. I would now want to give you the floor. Just take us through the key findings from this research that you actually author. And for colleagues who want to access the full report, we have shared it in the chat. We will be sharing it again with you via email after this particular discussion session. So, Mr. Issa, you have the floor. Thank you.
Once more, thank you so much, Jim. And I want to appreciate every member who actually participates in this platform. I also want to appreciate the 90 civil society organizations that actually provided inputs to actually transform this reality into this report into reality. I'm also inspired by the fact that people today are getting interested into the issues affecting civic space, especially post-COVID-19. Now, 2023 is a significant year of our democratization process. Sierra Leone continues to transition through very difficult path. So basically, this report initially actually examined the 2023 elections within the context of COVID-19 and shrinking civic space. Now, the report primarily is inspired by three trajectories, and this has to do with three-phase period. Between 1970 to 1990, there were issues of authoritarianism, issues of repression, and also issues of activism and liberalization. These were situations and time when you have people actually hold on to power and suppress in civil space. And there was a reason for an emergency. There was a reason for people to understand that public voice and community voice or communal voice is very central to sustainable peace and security. This was informed in 1991 to 2002, 2001, 2002. Let us don't forget that between this period, Sierra Leone experienced armed struggle. And that was very catastrophic for civic space and the entire people of Sierra Leone. After that, we had democratization and then multipartyism. This basically informed multi-party democracy, political party participation, and the space for civic participation actually expanded after the 1991 to 2002 era. Let us don't forget that the Civil War was formally declared over in 2002 with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission providing reasons for the end of the war. So significantly, the research focuses on providing answer to key research questions that has to do with the role of civil society organization in elections, the nature of civic space, the impact of COVID-19, and most importantly, the impact of shrinking civic space on Sierra Leone 2022 elections. The next slide. Now, we actually used a mixed methodology where we combine both qualitative and quantitative approach with a focus on 90 civil society organizations. We used desk review, key informant interview, survey questionnaire, and most importantly, focus group discussion. And the data for this period was collected between July 2022 and April 2029 because it's very important we maintain the clauses which are confidentiality, privacy, independence, and the best interest, not only on the side of the research team, but also on the side of CSOs and every other person who participated in the research process. Next slide. What we need to know very importantly is that the key findings show actually 87 CSOs participated in the entire research process with direct, and these CSOs have direct and indirect implementation of programs in all of Sierra Leone's 7 regions. Also, a majority of them have been existing in Sierra Leone for between 6 to 10 years. Next. That one of the key focus of this research is to understand COVID-19 Sierra Leone 2023 elections, as well as the shrinking civil space. Interestingly, 71% of those who actually participated in this research were actually involved in advocacy and public education, of which 61% involved, sensitization and other community awareness raising program. But then what is the impact of COVID-19 on civic space and the 2023 elections activities? Most of the actually CSO of 67% actually canceled their activities. Some reduced organization and movement, of which 46% actually lost funding. Again, elections during COVID-19 and shrinking civil space, especially voter registrations and are drivers of political violence. What is interesting to note is that 71% of the respondents actually reported that and concluded voter registration process provided opportunity for first-time voters. It is good to know that the voter registration process was practically successful because first-time voters had opportunity to participate. But what is also crucial to note is that 40% of these had opportunity to participate in the decision-making processes in the June 24th, 2023 elections. Next slide. Again, 76%, 73% of CS70, again, 75% of CSOs said this particular, actually, there has been increased use of speech. 66% actually reported that there were issues of such comments by politicians and vigilance, with 49% spread of fake news and misinformation. This is very crucial as a fundamental reason why the elections is presumed to be violent. Next slide. 75% of CSO, 50% of CSOs actually reduce their funding, of which 43% shift priorities, or 40% actually cut back on administrative expenses. These are some of the ways how COVID-19 actually impacts civil society organizations' elections activity as a result of reduced funding. Next slide. Again, civic space and 2023 elections are another key area that we actually examined, and 44% of respondents indicated that Sierra Leone civic space is at risk, of which 11% reported that it has deteriorated ahead of the 2023 elections scheduled for June 24, 2023. Again, 64% actually reported that some of the methods that are used by people to actually shrink civic space include the following: harassment and physical assault. 64% reported that. Arrest and detentions and release without charges. 63%. And most importantly, state institutions, including the police, were also used to spread or to shrink civic space in Sierra Leone, of which 47% reported on that circumstance. It is also crucial to note that the digital media, especially Facebook and Twitter, actually influenced and contributed to spread or to increase the space for civic participation in Sierra Leone, of which 31% agreed that the COVID-19 pandemic has actually allowed politicians to be more innovative in using social media for sensitization, awareness raising, public education ahead of the June 24, 2023 elections as well. 31% also, 70% also believe that now, despite the fact that there has been a reduced civic space, progress has been made to promote this particular platform, with 71% reported that most of the progress that has made to promote civic space in Sierra Leone has to do with policy enactment and law reform, of which 70% reported. Interestingly, the media has also witnessed investment. For example, the government of Sierra Leone has even increased its budget allocation to media institutions, including Sierra Leone Association of Journalists and also the Independent Media Commission. This platform actually receiving budget from government, which is a way as well to increase civic space and political participation in Sierra Leone. Again, we know that this particular report cannot be successful if we cannot provide conclusions to this report. Significant among them, as you can already see, is that civic space has actually deteriorated, restricted, and abused by both state and non-state actors ahead of the June 2024 elections. I will go again. One of the methodologies that is the key aspect is that harassment and physical assault, arrest, detention, and release without charges, use of state institutions, including the police, and restriction of peaceful assembly and protest are used by major political parties and even the state to actually shrink civic space in Sierra Leone. Next slide. Now, what are the key recommendations? Now, we believe that the 5 P's are very central in promoting civic space in Sierra Leone of the June 2023 elections. One has to do with participation, promotion, partnership, prevention, and prosecution. Political situations and political contexts are tied with so many issues of violence, abuse, and exploitation. If we want to promote a peaceful society, a credible elections, then if we want to improve civic space, activism, and promote free, fair, and credible 2023 elections, these 5 Ps must be effectively implemented. Next slide. But then what's the call to action? We believe that civil society organizations and the states are very central in promoting civic space and expanding popular participation ahead of the June 2023 elections. So we are calling on all civil society organizations to collaborate with relevant stakeholders to share experience and resources. We are also calling on the state of Sierra Leone to support the capacity building of CSOs and foster partnership between CSOs and the private sectors so that Sierra Leoneans can experience a peaceful, credible, and fair elections. Thereby, we can progress and civil space can continue to expand and continue to increase. Once more, this presentation is very short and it precisely highlights. I want to thank everyone who attended the session as I await questions, clarifications, and demand for comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that very succinct, presentation of this very elaborate research, which we encourage you all to visit. If you've not yet done so, we will be sharing the link again in the chat, and after which we'll be sharing via email to all of us who are here. Jimmy, I'm sure you are here with us. Thank you very much for staying on. You have followed, the process that led, to these very key findings that have been unveiled by ISA on the status of civic space and its impact or potential impact on the upcoming elections. Given your interactions on the field, and your interest in ensuring that we have successful elections in the country, what are your general impressions about this research so far? And what are those key points that you think we as civil society organizations, we need to take into account in our work? Jimmy?
Thank you very much, and good morning to everyone listening to this conversation. I think it's quite interesting, and thanks to ISA for taking up the time to conduct this study. I think
and colleagues states where, or in an environment where the...
Are you hearing me?
Yes, please, Jimmy, go ahead. We can hear you.
Yeah.
We just request that.
Can you hear me, Jimmy?
Yes,
Hello?
I'm hearing you, but you interrupted me, that's why.
Okay, sorry about that. So you can go on, please.
So I was saying, thanks to ISA for taking the time to conduct this studies. I think it's quite insightful when citizens of countries can take up time to conduct such a studies to try to provide some insight in what's happening on the ground. And I think when I read through the report, I get the impression that some of what ISA has raised is not new. But until you understand the context, you wouldn't quite appreciate where he's coming from. But I was also quite mindful, given where Sierra Leone sits as a country and the context, the dynamics, the political dynamics in the country. If I read a report, I try to first understand which region is the author coming from, to allow me, without any bias to ISA, to try to give me a picture of the depth of the information they provided. But on this specific report, I think ISA was quite balanced in terms of his analysis of the issues that are on ground. And I'd like to thank him for that. I don't know which part of the country he comes from, but for those of you listening who don't know Sierra Leone is a country regionally divided into two. When people speak to me here, I've been here for the last decade. When people speak to me here, I first try to understand where they come from to be able to genuinely understand their insights about the issues they are discussing. I would like to compare ISA's analysis of the context to what we experienced in 2018. The issues about the role of civil society. I think Sierra Leone has some of the brilliant civil society in West Africa, and they've demonstrated that through working assiduously into teams, working on specific things, but also building on some of the critical elements that are required to ensure that the civil space is protected. They did that very successfully with our support in 2018. But that civil space, I will say, was, in my view, using some of ISA's words, were largely exploited by the current system, meaning that some of the policies that the current system inherited, they further bloated it to the extent where it created a situation where there was tension between civil society and the government. But even while that was happening, the government took up time to engage with certain segments of the civil space, which made it difficult to really pinpoint as to what was going wrong with the entire civil space, because there were some elements, and I would say owners of the civil space, who were comfortable with what was going on, while people were very uncomfortable with what was going on. That was the link to the regions they come from. That's how even civil society in Sierra Leone can sometimes be. No matter how much they try to be independent, you can see that from their advocacy, their discussions on radio, and the rest of it. The swing in civil space, yes, I confirmed Alisa's analysis. It was really, really sinking. And that shrinking nature of the civil space was concerned to those of us that work in the international community. And I'm glad that ISA took up time to share some light on it. And we are hoping that this election will introduce a new way for government and civil society to be able to work together, no matter which region they come from. But I think, as he mentioned, the development cooperation framework wasn't civil society friendly. And I think civil society and their international partners, including some of the donors, really, really challenged the government on trying to make sure that the DCF does not undermine the civil space. So thank you, Alisa. On the issue of voter registration and political violence and linking that to the civil space, I think it has been political violence in Sierra Leone has been a concern to all development partners, including both the International Republican Institute and Search for Common Ground, those two institutions that I have worked for. So Alisa was right when he presented the situation of violence across the country. There has been no by-elections in Sierra Leone where violence has never been the order of the day. Quite unfortunate. It doesn't matter which part of the country that by-election was taking place, including the capital, Freetown, that has two districts, Western Urban, Western Rural. On the issue of the voter registration, I think there was a miscalculation around the entire process of the voter registration, and there was limited information about how the voter registration at that time was linked to the civic registration process that was, introduced by the government. Trying to tie the two, it worked. They tried it in 2018, it didn't work very well, which was a different government. Under this government, it was being pushed, but there were still challenges associated with that. So as a result, even today, as we speak, yesterday, the opposition issued a statement challenging the manner in which the voter registration was done, but the quality of the outcome of the voter registration. So I agree with our colleague on that, to say that the COVID-19 might have created some challenges with the entire voter registration exercise, because one region seems to be feeling underrepresented in the final outcome of the voter registration, something he alluded to in his report. Of course, human rights in the 2023 election, which was one key topic he covered, is another issue. The way the police, over time, not just under this regime, but on a previous regime, as I indicated, I've been here for the last decade, nothing has improved in terms of how the police interact with citizens, in terms of guarding the civic space, but also providing opportunity for citizens to be able to exercise their constitutional rights. On civil society elections activities, I think this is not new, but it's quite unfortunate that our development partners seem not to invest significantly in civil society in the second term of a government. I was told in 2012 there was not much investment done in the second term of President Nkrumah, but I saw huge investment in civil society efforts in 2018, which was the last term of President Nkrumah. For example, in 2018, when President Nkrumah was never running again, there was a very successful presidential debate that I chaired. Unfortunately, we've tried to find funding to be able to run the presidential debate again, something that did not work. So that is how funding shrink. So I don't want to link the shrinking of the funding space for civil society to just the pandemic. It is the structure of the donor funding, which I think civil society needs to conduct some advocacy, including support from WASI, to try to create some awareness within the donor community so that funding should not be selective, should not be based on how donor wants it. Because civil society, for example, those civil society organizations that were very active in 2018 do not have funding today to do effective civil society work on elections. What that means to me and those who watch in the civic space is that the international community, to some extent, was biased in terms of how they funded the 2018 and how they funded the 2023 elections. There were indications that because the international community, that was an allegation, don't take it for truth, that because they wanted the change in the system, they funded civil society in the way that promoted the change they wanted. Now that this system is in, they did not receive that same level of support. So I would think that if donor communities want to support civil society, they need to be consistent in their support, so that one regime does not see, or one opposition party or one ruling party in Sierra Leone does not see civil society as a threat. Because as it is, what was done under the APC when APC was in power is not being done now. So APC has a right to see civil society attacking them in 2018. So I would have loved to see a situation where the same exact support that was provided for civil society in 2018 to do the robust work they did should also be done in 2023. So that in 2029, when international community and donors are funding civil society, the consistency will be seen, which I think is not as it ought to be. Political campaign. I can say that I think that the report came out before the proportional representation. But before 2 days ago, there were very, impressive, engagement around the campaigns. But we're now seeing, issues of violence emerging, something we did not anticipate. Because I remember I was in the provinces when the nomination process was taking place. In 2018, during the nomination, there were serious violent incidences that even concerned us as development partners. In this nomination with the PR system, there were less incidences of violence. So we are invited some police officers to our activity, and I asked one of them, why will you take up the time to come to our activity when nomination is taking place? And he said, well, very senior police officer, and he said to me, look, the pressure we are always on during nomination in Sierra Leone elections, we are not on that same degree of pressure on this election. And he gave the credit to the proportional representation, because the tension, the fight, the demand for holding on to power is no more there, because you will now be voting for political party, except those going independent. So that tension reduced a little bit. But social media, which I didn't see, he talked about digital media, but social media now is trying to turn that gains around, which is something we need to watch out for. I think if this trend continues, it will be unhealthy for the process moving forward. Of course, I've talked about reduced funding. The media, we are having an engagement across the country next week. We want to be able to see how the media have created an enabling environment for all players, both civil society, political parties, and everyone else, to actively have access to the platforms. Because, of course, we see newspaper publications, we see radio, we see television, they do based on the region they come from. And you obviously know once media institutions are reporting to some extent based on the region they come from, you can tell in their reportage, which is something we are all observing. So I'd like to close here to be able to provide opportunity in case there are questions to be able to continue to reflect. But that's my insight about what has come up. And I hope, Issa, I want to encourage you in the future, if you want to look at the next election, please look at it early so that we have the time to start the discussions, and then the insights that we emerge can be used to inform some of the critical pieces of the puzzle that we all are looking forward to ensuring that the country can drive the process as it is. And also, to WASI, maybe in the future, given your capacity, I've been interacting with WASI for more than 10 years, given your capacity and your interest in the region, maybe on the ground kind of engagement where you come here with this report, bring civil society together, bring the academic together to sit down in Sierra Leone and discuss the report without going online will be a very powerful way to help the researcher to continue to be confident in what they're doing and the body of knowledge they are contributing to. Unfortunately, I have to walk out of the EC briefing to come and participate in this event because I take this very, very important, while also taking the EC event very, very important. But one has to overshadow the other. So that's why I'm here. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, Jimmy. I think we really appreciate, the sacrifice, that and the prioritization of this particular discussion. We know how challenging your time, how tight your schedule is at this moment, and your insights are quite critical. You raised significant pointers that, first of all, you validated most of the findings in this piece of research, which is quite affirming and appeasing, to us. And congratulations again to you, Issa, for this wonderful piece of job. And, Jimmy raised certain pointers. I think what struck me was actually the element of what I would call the funding bias, within a specific tenure, of a political regime. When it's in the second term, there is a drop. Why that drop? I think that is really something that is worth noting and interrogating in future explorations like this. And I thank you so much for those recommendations, Jimmy, to Issa, because Issa, I think this is really a big positive challenge that you've invited on yourself. This is a baseline that we have in 2023. Hopefully in the next elections, I think it's in 4 years or so, you should be able to early on open up this discussion again to explore what ameliorations, what changes have occurred, so that in Sierra Leone we can have a longitudinal appreciation, of what is happening when it comes to our elections. Thank you so much again, Jimmy. And that recommendation to WAXI is really well noted. I think it's really something worth pinning down and making it happen in subsequent elections in other countries, and why not in Sierra Leone if we choose to focus on Sierra Leone. Now to you, Issa, there are some interesting questions coming, in the chat. We have from Marion. Thank you very much, Marion, for raising these very interesting questions. And I'll read the two questions, and Issa will get your reflections on that. This presentation is inspiring, says Marion. How does this research findings compare to countries in North America who are now facing coming elections? COVID-19 is affecting Canada, and in particular, Quebec's civic free space. I'll give you the floor, Issa, to respond to that. Marion further says, are we functioning more and more in police states? Fake news is so convincing and Hollywood is so convincing. How do we persuade our communities to be more analytical in understanding facts from opinion? How are we educating our youth to make informed choices? I think the second contribution from Marion is more or less an observation, and I really think pieces like this, research like this, where civil society actors take up the initiative to interrogate certain aspects within our social constructs, are key to educating our society to make informed choices. So, Issa, I would want to give you the floor. You may have a reaction to these first thoughts that came from Marion before we take other contributions that are coming into the chat. Issa, 2 minutes or 3 minutes, maybe.
Oh, okay, it's fine. Thank you so much, Jim, and thank you so much to Marion for asking the questions, and also the person who actually initially responded to this one. On the issue of how this report aids North America, who are actually now approaching elections, how this report helps. like we actually stated on the findings of this report, COVID-19 affected every facet of society. And there is a reason that this report serves as a learning for other countries, including North America, which practically experienced similar situations of COVID-19 pandemic. And we hope that these learnings can be a lesson and can provide sufficient information that is required to address the issues of civic space in North America. But we should also note that the context might be different as against to Africa, precisely in Sierra Leone, as to what obtains in North America. It is a reason for us to understand the context, specifically context, and actually evaluate the specific contribution to those situations that inspire COVID-19 and how, by extension, it affects civic space in North America. On the second questions, on the second question, of course, like these are recommendations that are very key and are very central to expanding the thought processes of this particular report. And it is hoped that we can continue to provide more information, and this information can continue to inspire more people to collectively provide response to these issues. Again, fake news has been a very big problem. I mean, information has been a very big problem, basically because people have limited access to information. And once information is limited, they're actually provided with a platform to take decisions that affect them, not only in Sierra Leone, and it affects most countries in Africa, but also in North America globally. So there is a reason for us to continue to engage our people, let them understand. But again, the functioning of civic space as a police state, this is what is experienced now. I remember the report clearly noted that you have political parties, and political institutions where you have people who actually participate in violence. And these people who participate in violence, as government changes, some of these people are actually included into this police force. This is making the police force more frightening. And as a result of that, you have more violence than actually a police force. Many people in Sierra Leone report actually describe Sierra Leone civic space where you have institutions who are protecting those in power as against upholding the duty and responsibility they are supposed to protect. I hope this one's answer your question, Auntie Mayon. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Issa. We have a contribution, in the chat. And interestingly, Bernard Kabore, thank you for joining from Burkina Faso and those joining from French-speaking countries like Benin. I'm sure they've been following. Unfortunately, we didn't actually make provisions for, translations, but thank you so much for coming. And Bernard is basically affirming the observation, of Issa, even though likening it to the situation in Burkina Faso. And he says the discussion has really been very interesting, and he likes the exchange of experience. In Burkina Faso, COVID had a very grievous impact in the country at different levels. There was this social distancing that affected, socialization. And in the villages, elderly persons and those who are, poor, really suffered the most from this pandemic, and so he's just sharing the experience that they had in Burkina Faso, which is, very similar to what most of our countries actually encounter. Before we wrap up this session, I would want to just come to you, Jimmy. And I'm particularly picking on the element on civic space. And, according to the CIVICUS monitor, which explores the standings of respective countries when it comes to civic freedoms or the respect of civic freedoms, Sierra Leone is categorized as obstructed. And the specific examples that Issa highlighted from this research with regards to harassment, deprivement of our rights to express our views are some of the characteristics that make Sierra Leone to be positioned at that level, which is not a very good standing when it comes to civic freedom. And here we have our elections coming in a couple of days. And we know there are civil society actors who are here present. There are those who will watch this discussion, post this session, even before the elections. Jimmy, what are those key things civil society actors, civil society organizations must take into consideration within these few days prior to the elections to make sure that we give our best to ensure a free, fair, credible, and successful elections? Jimmy?
So the context is such that the main opposition yesterday issued a statement, and I feel like that statement was quite troubling, given we have few days, using your words, to the elections. And that statement, I mean, needs thorough examination. They might have raised some very important points, but I feel like those points are being raised too late for stakeholders to do anything about. And so civil society has a way of influencing things so that the situation does not get off hand. So I would expect, given the legitimacy of national civil society organizations, they will watch out to try to understand the motivation for that statement that came out yesterday, the press conference held by the leader of the main opposition, to try to understand the motivation and to regroup and ask themselves two questions. Why is the current opposition pulled out of the elections? What does that mean for us? Why is the main opposition decide to obstruct the election? What will that mean for the country? Because no matter what, elections is a conflict to undertaking. What we all try to do is to ensure that it does not escalate to violence. And any degree of escalation will not be good for the country. If you recall, August 10th was not good for Sierra Leone. And so we do not want any given situation to resemble August 10th. And therefore, every stakeholder and all stakeholders need to get involved to try to position ourselves in the way we contribute to this process. But if the way things has been unfolding over the last few weeks, other than the development yesterday, if things continue that way, all we can hope for is that when people cast their ballots, like we are all encouraging them, they should go home, follow the result, and it is our hope that the EC will do a good job to demonstrate credibility, transparency, and openness in the electoral process. Today, they are engaging with national and international observers to explain to them their expectation and to provide the opportunity for interaction between international and national observers about what the EC expectation is. I'm hoping that moving forward, there will be similar kind of engagements between them and other stakeholders. So that's all I can say.
Thank you very much for those very firm recommendations. We really do appreciate the contributions. And, you know, we are wrapping up now, dear colleagues. Thank you very much for joining us for this particular session. So, and thank you, Issa. But I would want to close with you, Issa. You know, taking out that time to get into a deep exploration on, you know, the situation about our upcoming elections and what we can do. Yes, it's coming at the eve, you know.
Sorry, Jim, can I excuse you guys and join my meeting that is already on?
Yes, Jimmy. Yes, Jimmy. Thank you so much for your time. We really do appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure always.
And we wish you the best. Yeah, we wish you the best, you know, as you'll be working with our other stakeholders to make sure these elections come to a successful end. Thank you, and we wish you all the best. So let me come back to you, Issa, for, you know, what is that key or core recommendation that you have for civil society actors in the country, you know, based on evidence, on what they need to do? They may have just 5 days, maybe just a week, but what must they really retool their minds to do within this space of time that we have, that can go a long way to make things better for Sierra Leone and for West Africa? Issa?
Yes, thank you very much, Jim. The expectations based on actually the reports are very clear that civil society organizations do have a central role to play in promoting peace, credible and fair elections. And that has to do with their commitment to effectively monitor the electioneering process and provide opportunity for everyone to speak up and be heard. If CSO ignore this their traditional or conventional role, then the peaceful and transparent elections we're experiencing might be challenging. I think the report states it very clear that if Sierra Leone must have these kind of elections, CSOs are crucial people. And that has to do with the fact that they have to continue engaging, continue to engage, continue to dialogue, continue to educate. Like Marion actually said, there are so many issues around young people and their knowledge on how they participate in elections in Sierra Leone. This is actually a practice that happens everywhere, including in Sierra Leone. So there's a reason for CSOs to continue to engage these young people on a violent, free, and fair elections. So this is a process that continues stakeholders' engagement, and I hope and pray that Sierra Leone will have a peaceful, credible, and transparent election so that we can move forward June 24 and continue.
Thank you, thank you. I think there is an interruption. We have Caroline Owusu from Ghana. Very insightful presentation and discussion. I'm looking forward to observing the coming elections and the country's response to any issues that shall arise, especially with regards to participation and transparency and how the various stakeholders handle arising issues. Thank you very much, Caroline, for sharing that. And all of us are really looking forward to the upcoming elections. I think Sierra Leone is actually like a city built on a hill when it comes to democratic advancement in the region. So colleagues, thank you very much. We just want us to take a quick poll. It's been shared in the chat and it will be shared again. Kindly click on the link and just spend 2 or 3 minutes with us, to take that poll. It will be shared again in the chat. And if you've not yet downloaded the report from our website, the link is equally in the chat where you can access the full report. Just to let you know that this report is published, by WAPSI, and it's a space that the West Africa Civil Society Institute gives for different actors, citizens of Africa, persons interested in interrogating, dissecting, discussing issues pertaining to development on the continent, in West Africa, in particular, West African countries. You can share your idea with us. You can pitch your idea, your abstract, what you want to explore, and we will particularly see how best that fits within the overall strategy that we are putting forward, or that we have in place between 2023 and 2027. And if it fits well, we will work with you to ensure that you put out a very resourceful knowledge product that can inspire such discussions. Why not inspire actions on the ground by civil society, by governments, by private sector, so that together we can work towards a peaceful and prosperous region. So if you're interested in contributing your thoughts that can help in the advancement of the work of civil society in development and peace and security in the region, in a specific West African country, do get in touch by writing to research@waxi.org. It is in the chat, and we will happily follow up to ensure that you can be one of the next authors dissecting key issues affecting the work of civil society. Well, during this period, I'm sure we are taking the survey. It will be shared with us again. And so Robert Abana says, we wish them a very peaceful elections. That is to our Sierra Leonean brothers. Thank you so much, Robert, for joining all the way from Ashanti. The survey link has been shared in the chat again. And Bernard Kabore says, from the beginning, of COVID-19 in Burkina Faso, there was civil society actors, working in the health sector, who engaged very rapidly in sensitizing the population, to help us stay safe, particularly with sanitary measures that we need to put in place. We also had the involvement of voluntary associations in neighborhoods and within the sector that really helped to contribute in this regard. This helped us to achieve the objectives that were put in place when it comes to keeping away COVID-19. But when it comes to financing, we were put aside by the state. No, we were put aside, and the state, had, an advantage when it came to financing efforts geared towards combating COVID-19. Samba Sal, I think he's from Senegal, if I'm not mistaken, yes, he says, je suis dans un pays où la situation politique est critique, voire même violente. Je serais très honoré de rejoindre de ces genres d'organisations pour beaucoup apprendre afin de participer auprès de la société civile de monde en particulier et dans le monde en général. Merci beaucoup. Thank you, Samba. Samba, I think he's from Senegal, and he's saying the political situation in his country is quite critical at this moment. I'm sure we are following the developments in Senegal as it stands. There were instances of political violence in the past few days. And so he's really happy to be with us, to share with us, but most particularly looking forward to having the opportunity to have a space within a civil society organization where he can learn and contribute to the advancement of democracy in his country. Thank you very much, Issa. And maybe just to take your last words while colleagues are filling the survey. Issa, just very quickly, what is that one last word that you have for all of us here? Issa, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I want to thank the entire WAXI team. It's been an inspirational journey, and it's a journey that I will always cherish in my life. I think this is a moment every Sierra Leonean must be proud of, and I hope that this report can serve as a platform to inform other opportunities so that we can continue to expand civic space in Sierra Leone and address the root causes and also the shrinking effects caused by COVID-19 pandemic. I thank you so much. I thank you, Jim. I thank every member of this team for the work done, and I will continue to respectfully provide my time, my commitment, and my discipline to continue to grow the knowledge base in Sierra Leone. Once more, thank you so much, the entire team. I'm so humbled and extremely proud of you. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you so much, Issa. Accept the acknowledgements, appreciation, and gratitude from the management of the Institute for your dedication to contribute to the body of knowledge with a focus on Sierra Leone. That is wonderful and an honorable responsibility you've taken upon yourself, and we are encouraging others who are interested in contributing in one way or the other to discuss issues pertaining to civil society's work, to development in their respective countries, particularly how that can contribute to development and prosperity. Do reach out to our team at WAXI, research@waxi.org or info@waxi.org, and we can take the conversation forward. We are really happy to have had you here with us. We kindly invite you all to take a few minutes to fill the survey and just give us your impressions on how this discussion went, what you took out of it, hopefully how you intend to use it. And in case you want to be the next to be on this platform by WAXI and have your article published on our website, which is being used by civil society and development partners from across the globe, do not hesitate to reach out to us, and we will work with you to make this happen. If it's a dream, it will come true, just as it has come true for our honorable colleague, Mr. Issa. Thank you once again. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for joining from Nigeria, from Senegal, from Benin, from Burkina Faso, from Ghana, from Cameroon, from Sierra Leone. Nous tenons à vous remercier pour votre participation à cette discussion et à la prochaine. Thank you very much for engaging with us in this wonderful conversation, and see you in our next discussion. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful afternoon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Samuka. Thank you, Emmanuel Maouli.
Bye-bye pour le Burkina.
Merci beaucoup les collègues depuis le Ouaga, j'espère.
I didn't know you can speak French.
Okay.
I wish I can also speak the French.
I'm telling you.
I am learning.
Thank you so much. I'm from Ghana.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Medasi.
I'm joining from Monrovia.
Oh, thank you very much. We hope things are going well in Monrovia, and I hope we will learn from this research so that we'll put in place, what needs to be done in our upcoming elections in Liberia. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.